The third shot didn't sound like the rest. Everyone shot for score. Except him. Blake noticed it between his own strings, mid-reset, cleaning grit off his rear bolt lug. Everyone else on the line was running hot, brass pinging across the gravel, instructors barking adjustments. But that shot? Deeper. Slower. Almost like it didn't care if anyone noticed. Blake glanced up. Lane 12, the far end of the range, past the instructor markers, had a shooter prone behind a rifle Blake didn't recognize. Long bolt-action frame. Old school Woodstock. Sun faded. No bipod, just a folded jacket under the foregrip. The scope had no cap. Glass bare to the heat. Blake turned back to his own kit. Custom optic, fresh dope cards, wind chart clipped under his mat. But something about that lane kept pulling at him. Who's that guy? Blake asked, half to himself. Simmons, 3 lanes over, chuckled. That's Hollis. Shows up every Thursday. Hasn't been on payroll in years. He a vet? Something like that. He was SEAL, long before us. Some say he ran sniper instruction before they digitized the scorekeeping. Others say he just never left. Blake narrowed his eyes. That a museum piece he's shooting? No idea. But he always hits. Doesn't say a word. Doesn't stay after. Just shoots and vanishes. The next shot rang out. Same deep bark. Clean. No overpressure. Blake checked the flag on the right tower. Crosswind had picked up 5 knots. Enough to throw most shooters off center beyond 700 yards. But if Hollis adjusted, Blake didn't see it. No scope dial. No spotter. No callout. Blake finished his drill, but not with focus. His last group trailed right. He knew it before he stood. Chief didn't need to tell him. At the far end, Hollis stood up slow, slung the rifle, no case, and walked down the gravel line without looking at anyone. He left nothing behind, except one target, laid flat on the review board. 5 holes, grouped so tight they looked like one. No signature. No date. Just a hand-drawn X at the bottom. And one line in pencil. See you next Thursday. By Monday, the range was buzzing. Blake wasn't the only one who noticed the paper target. Someone had taken a photo and passed it around the barracks like a secret. 5 rounds, single hole, 800 yards. No zeroing shots. No corrections. Just done. The instructors didn't mention it. They never did. But on the dry erase board where drill scores were posted, someone had written 2 words in the corner. Thursday, Hollis. No rank. No column. Just a ghost and permanent marker. Blake started asking around, low and casual. One of the older range hands just laughed and shook his head. He doesn't talk, the guy said. Not unless you already know the question. By Wednesday night, Blake had made up his mind. He wasn't going to ask Hollis anything. He was going to outshoot him. He stayed late in the armory, dialing in hand-loaded match rounds, checked his zero, reran the wind tables, calculated slope on plate 10 even though the difference was negligible. If Hollis hit 5 for 5 with no warm-up, then Blake would hit 6. One more. Clean group. Let the old man nod at that. Thursday came hot and still. Unusual for their section of California, but Blake took it as a sign. Maybe the old man had been lucky last time. Maybe he'd flinch under a little pressure now that people were watching. Because this time, the others noticed. Not just the recruits, instructors too. Drenner stood with arms crossed under the tower. Another officer watched from the shadows behind the wind tarp. Blake was already prone, glass leveled, round-chambered. Lane 11. Lane 12 remained empty, for now. Then the crunch of gravel. Hollis walked up the line with the same slow steps. No ear pro. No gloves. No plate carrier. Just that same jacket. And the rifle, older than Blake, maybe older than the building, slung behind his shoulder like it belonged there more than he did. He didn't speak, didn't nod, just laid the rifle down, slid his jacket under the stock, and adjusted the scope without even looking at the wind flag. Blake went first. Group of 6. Tight, with one flyer high left. Not perfect, but good enough to post. He cleared his rifle and stepped back, chest hot, blood louder than the range noise. Then Hollis fired. No rush. 3 shots spaced evenly. The 4th came faster. The 5th almost immediately after. Then silence. Blake looked downrange. Nothing. Not until the instructor walked back with the target and said flatly, same as last week. Only this time, there were 6 holes, still grouped, still touching, still no signature. Just one new line at the bottom. The third one's always first. Blake didn't know what it meant, but the instructors did. Because when they saw it, they didn't smile. They just got quiet. Blake waited until the others cleared out. After nightfall, he walked back to the range alone, headlamp off, boots slow on the gravel. The wind had dropped. The only sound was distant surf and the hum of the floodlights overhead. Lane 12 was empty. So was the clipboard. No entry for Hollis. No initials. No record of shots fired. But the target from earlier, the 6-hole group, had been left folded on the maintenance table. Intact. Clean. Blake slid it out and stared. The third one's always first. The phrase looped in his head. It didn't make sense. Not as a brag. Not as strategy. Then again, Hollis didn't seem to care about recognition. Blake flipped the paper over. Nothing. But in the corner, almost invisible in pencil, was a number. #2173B. He didn't recognize it. Not a locker. Not a course code. But he knew where to start. The next morning, he skipped PT and went straight to the archives, a dusty, half-forgotten file room 2 levels down from admin. Most recruits didn't even know it existed. Blake found the oldest clerk on shift, a civilian in his 60s with bifocals and a navy ball cap that had long since lost its shape. "I'm looking for a training file. Old one. Sniper records. Name? Just a number. 2173B. The man raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. 10 minutes later, he came back with a folder. Paper, not digital. Thin. On the cover. Seal qualification match. Unit designate B. Redacted. Shooter Hollis RL. Inside were 3 sheets. First, scorecard. Maxed. Second, weapon signature. An M91 variant, bolt action, customized, predated modern SEAL sniper standard. Third, disciplinary note. Blake read it twice. Shooter refused commendation for 3 confirmed Overwatch actions, citing 1 missed. Not mine to wear. Recommendation. Withhold public citation. Assigned training billet quietly. That was it. No medal. No ceremony. Just silence, preserved in a file no one had checked in years. Blake returned the folder without comment. When he reached the range later that afternoon, the winds were kicking hard off the cliffs. No one was shooting. But Lane 12 had fresh marks in the gravel. Boot prints. Facing downrange. Not from earlier that day. They were older, dried at the edges, soft at the center. But something told Blake, they'd never fully disappear. The wind was heavy the next morning. Enough to cancel drills. The instructors posted the alert by 0500. No long-range sessions until crosswinds dropped below 8 knots. Most recruits slept in or moved to dry fire indoors. Blake didn't. He went to the range. Not to shoot. Just to see. Lane 12 was roped off, but someone had left a chair near the toolshed. The folding kind, old aluminum frame with worn green straps. A single black coffee cup rested under it. No lid. Still warm. Blake waited an hour. No one came. So he walked around the back of the shed, not to trespass, but to understand. There, behind a wall of rusted lockers, he found it. A rifle case. Long, hardshell. OD green. Unmarked. Tucked under a tarp, wedged behind the compressor unit. The lock was old, broken, snapped open with the teeth still jammed inside. He opened it slowly. Inside, the same rifle Hollis used, M91 variant. Wood worn smooth near the cheek weld. Bolt greasy but clean. Scope held in place by an older set of rings Blake hadn't seen since legacy armories in the Midwest. And there, under the foam, a laminated card. Not a spec sheet. A name list. 4 names. All scratched through except one. R.L. Hollis. The second name down had a note next to it, in faded black ink. Missed at 312. Never again. Blake didn't touch anything else. He closed the case. Pulled the tarp back over it. And walked the line alone. Back inside the main bay, he found Chief Drenner standing by the bench press rack, towel over one shoulder. Blake didn't ask directly. He just said, "How long's he been coming here?" Drenner didn't flinch. "Long enough. Is he cleared?" "Doesn't need to be. He's not here to prove anything." Blake nodded, then hesitated. "What happened at 312? Drenner didn't smile. He looked away, voice lower now. "Ask the wind?" Blake said nothing more. But he knew. Whatever happened at 312, it lived in that rifle. And in the man who still carried it. Not for glory, but because someone had to remember. There was one more thing in the case. Blake hadn't noticed it at first, tucked into the upper corner, inside a dry seal pouch wrapped in flannel. He hadn't opened it yesterday, didn't feel like his to touch, but today felt different. Lane 12 was empty again, the chair still there, coffee gone. Blake returned to the tool locker, unlatched the old rifle case, and carefully peeled back the cloth. Inside the pouch sat a single round, not standard, .300 Win Mag, but not mil-spec, brass casing, hand-polished, marker stamped with 3 letters near the primer, JRW, not Hollis's initials. The bullet looked untouched, not worn, not part of a batch, one of one, and folded beneath it, a scrap of notebook paper, torn edge, written in clean block letters. Wind was wrong. Eyes weren't, still saw it, still didn't pull, no signature. Just one final mark in the corner, 3:12, the time again. Blake felt the weight of it, not the bullet, the meaning. It had sat in that case for years, maybe decades, untouched, remembered. A shot he didn't take, a choice that cost something. He rewrapped the pouch and closed the case without a sound. Back at the barracks, he searched for the initials. Eventually, he found them, buried in a mission file from 2003. Declassified in parts, redacted in others. JRW, Sniper Spotter, SEAL Team 3. Kia listed during a night overwatch engagement, Kandahar region. Unconfirmed wind shift. Suspected compromise. Hollis had been on the mission. He was never listed as injured. Never decorated. Just listed as returned. Blake sat back, heart thudding. It wasn't just about the shot. It was about the one he didn't take, and the cost that came after. That night, Blake walked the range alone. Lane 12 was already dark. No targets posted. No prints in the gravel. But the folding chair was still there. And taped beneath the seat, folded clean in half, was a new silhouette target. Blank. No holes. But in the corner drawn by hand. Thursday. Bring 6. Thursday came with cloud cover. Unusual for this stretch of coast. The air hung heavy, the kind of damp that settled into your sleeves. The range stayed open, but fewer recruits showed. Rumors moved faster than people. Hollis was already there. Seated. Jacket folded. Rifle resting across his knees like it had never been stored. He didn't look at anyone. Didn't glance at the instructor post. Just waited. Blake stepped into lane 12 beside him. No permission. No invitation. Just presence. He laid out his mat next to the folding chair. No talk. No ritual. When he looked downrange, 6 fresh targets waited. 5 were standard silhouettes. But the 6th, the one farthest out, looked older. The edges were yellowed from sun. The corner curled slightly. Blake recognized it. It was the same target from the archive photo in the mission file. The one marked Kandahar 3.12. That wasn't coincidence. That was memory. Hollis chambered his first round. Blake watched him, not the scope. No movement wasted. No hesitation. The shot broke, a low, slow crack that landed like punctuation. Plate 1, center. 5 more followed, each cleaner than the last. He didn't check wind. Didn't shift his position. He just knew. When Hollis rolled onto his back, done, breathing slow, Blake felt the silence drop across the range like a second sky. No one clapped. No one spoke. Not even Drenner, who stood at the top of the berm and watched without blinking. Blake walked the line with him. Checked each plate. All clean. Then he stopped at the 6th. No hits. But taped to the base, not part of the drill, was a folded strip of tape. He peeled it free. On the back, written in red marker, "Some targets aren't meant to be hit. Only watched. Only remembered." Blake turned to ask, but Hollis was already gone. Not down the road. Not behind the shed. Just gone. He left the rifle on the mat. Bolt open. Scope dusted with salt wind. And beneath it, where the bipod legs should have been, sat one item. A coin. Trident on one side. An hourglass on the other. And engraved around the rim. "For the one I missed." The instructors didn't clear lane 12. They didn't rope it off, either. They just left it. No name on the board. No targets. No chatter. But every morning after that, someone placed a fresh silhouette on the stand. Always the same kind, unscored, unmarked. Just blank and waiting. Blake came alone that first Friday. Not to shoot, just to see. The mat was still there. The rifle was gone. The chair folded and leaned quietly against the wall of the shed. But the coin remained. Someone had placed it in the gravel. Centered. Level. Untouched. Blake didn't pocket it. He sat beside it, watched the wind flags shift, listened to the range settle, and remembered. Chief Drenner passed behind him at one point, said nothing, just nodded toward the empty chair. "Every group gets one," he said. Blake looked up. "One what?" Drenner shrugged. "One man who never left." Then he walked on. Later that day, Blake entered the range log, not his own shot record but a note. Lane 12 reserved, open legacy. The admin officer tried to flag it. Blake didn't let him. "It's not a drill slot," he said. "It's something else." That weekend, 2 others came. Not to fire, just to sit. One of them, Simmons, brought coffee and left a spent casing at the base of plate 6. Another recruit dropped off a small patch with no name, just a single stitched hourglass. By the following week, the chair had returned. No one said who placed it. No one claimed it. It simply was. On Thursdays, a fresh silhouette appeared like clockwork, sometimes hit, sometimes untouched, but always collected before nightfall. And on the back of each one, scrawled in handwriting that didn't match any recruit, "For the one you didn't see." Blake never found Hollis again. Not in files, not in photos, not even in the instructor briefings, but every now and then, late at night when the range lights buzzed low, he'd hear a shot, just one, echo off the back wall. Old sound, old rhythm, always followed by silence. Months passed, classes rotated, uniforms changed, racks filled then emptied again. But Lane 12 stayed the same. The instructors never reassigned it. The clipboard remained blank, and each Thursday morning, a single silhouette target would appear like it always had, stapled straight, centered on the last rack. No scoring rings, no notes. Just presence. Recruits stopped asking who put it there. It didn't matter. Everyone knew. Blake stayed on as assistant range chief. Not formal yet, but the instructors let him run drills when they were short. Trusted him in a way they didn't explain. He kept the routine quiet. Made sure Lane 12 had what it needed. Made sure no one rushed it. Made sure no one laughed when someone left something behind. Because more and more people did. A coin. A spent round. A name strip folded twice and left beneath the sandbag rest. And every now and then, once or twice a month, someone would fire. Not for points. Not for recognition. Just for memory. Blake never asked who. But he always walked the line before sunrise. And sometimes, just sometimes, the target would be missing a corner. Clean tear. Single hit. No casing left behind. Only a taped note folded once, placed face down in the gravel. He never opened them. Not until the last day of his own final posting. He stood alone at the edge of the range. Wind light, ocean quiet. Pulled a worn envelope from his pocket, one he'd carried for years, and taped it to the target's back. No return address. Just 2 words handwritten in slow block script. "I remember." Then he fired once. Didn't check the hit. Didn't mark the score. He walked back down the line, left the mat folded, and placed his coin, the one Hollis had once left, under the leg of the chair. He didn't say goodbye. Just paused, and looked toward the rack one last time. The silhouette fluttered in the breeze. Blank. Clean. Still waiting. Because some targets were never meant to be scored. Only seen. Only remembered. And left for the next one to hold.